Hello everybody, some would say I'm the reverse, and welcome to my review for the Stargirl Season 1 finale, Season 1 Episode 13, titled Stars and Stripe Part 2, Let's get into my general thoughts about this episode. I thought this was such a good episode, such a great finale, such a great way to end the show, or end the season, and there's a lot of setup for Season 2, and there was great resolution to a lot of stuff for Season 1, and it was just a very entertaining episode overall, and I loved it. So, let's get right into what happened. So, the episode picks up right where it left off with the ISA activating their brainwashing machine, and the JSA is in the tunnels trying to stop them. So they turn the machine on, and all the adults in however many states in America, maybe it's the whole country, I don't remember, they're brainwashed, including Pat and Barbara and Justin, and yeah. So we ended off last week with Pat attacking Stargirl because he's brainwashed, and basically Courtney, she got through to him by saying, basically she was just telling him that he's her father and stuff. It was a very heartwarming moment and stuff, but this throughout the whole time, Beth was working on with Chuck, trying to hack through these blocking signal things that are in the tunnels that would block the frequency down there, to free Justin and Pat from the brainwashing. So she was having kind of like a hack battle with the gambler, and she was losing. So really it was Chuck and the gambler, but I'm just gonna say it was Beth because it's easier to explain. But yeah, to distract the gambler from these frequency blocking things in the tunnels, she hacked into all of his bank accounts, offshore and onshore accounts, and donated all his money to different charities to distract him. And and then she took the signals down. Pat and Justin got free of the brainwash, and Pat was telling Courtney that he heard everything she said, and then she told him that she meant everything she said. Very heartwarming moment. And I'll get more into some moments between them in this episode. So the JSA, they meet up in the ISA's main kind of room, and they go to find the machine. But Jordan and Dragon King and just the ISA basically catches them in the act, and there's a big fight scene. I'm not going to get too into it since it is just an action scene. But basically they split off, and it was like Hourman versus Sportsmaster, and I believe it was Wildcat versus Tigress, Dragon King versus Shining Knight, and then it was Jordan versus Courtney, and then Stripe was kind of battling against Jordan a little bit too, and they won. The JSA won until the gambler released Solomon Grundy to fight Stripe and Hourman. Courtney and Wildcat had already gone off to try to destroy the machine. Basically they go in there, they get split off, and Wildcat has this really interesting altercation with all these drones, and one of them takes the hood thing off, and it's Henry King Jr., who claims to have survived the cave-in, and he has been hiding as a drone for the past few days. And then he asks her where her friends are, and that's when she realizes something's off, and she slits his throat, and she says they were Henry's friends too, and it turns out that it was Brainwave, basically creating like an illusion. I don't know. Basically, he made her my understanding was that he made her hallucinate, and and she thought that it was Henry King Jr. when it was actually Henry King Sr. So that's how Brainwave was killed, and yeah, that was really surprising for me. I didn't expect Wildcat to be the one to kill him, because she didn't really have a connection to him at all. But it makes sense because she had a connection to his son, and I like the way that they used Henry King Jr. In this scene. So I thought that scene was really cool. It sucks to see Brainwave die, even though he is like a terrible, terrible person, and he is definitely like one of the main villains, and he's very evil. I really liked his character, and I just really liked him as a villain. So it sucks to see him leave the show, but I do have faith that there are going to be good villains that replace him, and I'll get to the season 2 villains later in the video. But speaking of the deaths of these ISA members, when Shining Knight and Dragon King are fighting, Dragon King gets the upper hand. He's about to kill Justin, and Shiv, his daughter Cindy, comes up behind him and stabs him, with her shiv, and she shivs him, and then he dies. That was really, really, really surprising. I was not expecting Cindy to kill him. I wasn't even expecting him to die. I was thinking that he might escape and have a big part in, maybe season 1 or something. Or season 2, excuse me. I'm not sure. But yeah, he died, which again, really surprising that who killed him. It was his daughter this time, and she killed him for locking her up in the cell, and probably also kind of rejecting her as a father. He was obviously a very terrible father. He looked at her as an experiment instead of his child, so she probably had a lot of resentment towards him. So I get why she killed him. That was just very, very surprising. But yeah. When it comes to the machine, Courtney and Wildcat, they go to the satellite, which came out from the football field in Blue Valley, and she flies up, Courtney, and she uses her staff to shoot a laser through it and stuff, and she destroys it, and that was a really cool moment. And a bunch of people at Blue Valley, all the people that weren't adults, because every adult was brainwashed, they saw Courtney for the first time as Stargirl. Obviously, they don't know it's Courtney, but I don't know if Stargirl is going to be like this local hero, this big-time hero that Blue Valley has, because basically in Season 1, nobody really knew that her or the JSA really existed and were operating through Blue Valley. But now that they do, maybe, I don't know, how like on the Flash and Arrow, Flash and Green Arrow are like public heroes and everyone knows about them and stuff. Is that going to be a thing on Stargirl? I don't know. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see about that. But satellite is destroyed and stuff, and yeah. What next? What else we got? After that, the gambler tells Jordan to go find Beth, because she's the one that was doing all the satellite and stuff, trying to hack in and ruin their plans. So he goes to confront Beth, and Barbara's there too, now unbrainwashed, because the satellite is destroyed. Everyone is unbrainwashed, and so he goes there and he freezes Chuck, completely ruins the goggles and stuff, and he knocks Beth to the ground, and he takes Barbara, and yeah. So we'll get back to that later. For now, we're going to talk about the Solomon Grundy stuff. He was released. It's been he's been a very intriguing character. Everyone's been waiting for him to be unleashed upon the show. And I do have to say, it was not disappointing at all. I was expecting to be disappointed, as I usually am. That's just how my expectations are. So once they are surpassed, I'm more happy about what happened in the episode. But I wasn't expecting much from Solomon Grundy, but he was awesome. The CGI was really good for TV. It was almost there. A little bit more work and it would have been very good. But it was good. I don't blame the show or anything for having... It wasn't bad CGI, definitely. It definitely wasn't bad. But it was a little bit fakey looking, but that's obviously understandable. But still, it was very impressive for what they did with the character, and I think it looked pretty good. So yeah, the CGI was almost there, which is very commendable, and I think they did a good job with him. So he was fighting S.T.R.I.P.E and stuff. Very cool fight because they're both huge characters. The robot suit is like the same size as Grundy, and they were having a big fight, and Grundy eventually ripped the arms off of S.T.R.I.P.E and stuff, and basically ruined the whole suit, and then Our Man came back and beat him up and completely destroyed him, which I saw some people commenting on how would Our Man beat Solomon Grundy. I don't really have a problem with it at all. I mean, that's just the way it is in this universe. There's multiple iterations of each character, and if Our Man's more powerful than Grundy, I think that's fine. And they even use it in a very interesting way. Later, he's beating the crap out of Solomon Grundy, the one who killed his parents, and he's about to kill Grundy, or at least, just do something completely inhumane and just, like, manhandle him, and he lets him go, because Grundy is, like, and this was a very, like, I wouldn't say a wholesome moment, but it was a very interesting moment, because Grundy was portrayed as this sort of uncontrollable beast, and he was scared of Our Man, and he was, like, basically pleading for life, which I thought was very interesting. And Our Man lets him go, and he tells him to never come back, and Grundy leaves and stuff. That was very interesting. And see, that's why I appreciate Our Man being more powerful than Grundy in this case, because they used it in an interesting way to serve the characters in the story. Earlier in the episode, Yolanda was telling Rick not to kill Grundy. Well, she killed Brainwave. He didn't kill Grundy, which I thought was a very interesting flip. And he really wanted to kill Grundy, but he's a hero, and he decided to let Grundy live, which I thought was very, very, very interesting, because obviously Grundy's the one that killed his parents. So, I don't understand all the hate with Our Man being able to beat Grundy. I mean, Grundy's bigger, but Our Man has super strength, so it's just however the show writers want to portray the power levels. I don't have a problem with it, because it served the characters and the story, and I liked it. So let's get back to the whole Icicle and Barbara and Beth situation. He took Barbara, brought her to, like, the roof, and we had a really interesting scene with him and her when he was telling her about his plan of helping people and making the new America, and he was, basically, he was holding her, like, head to his chest and, like, hugging her a lot and stuff, and obviously he has feelings for her, which was pretty much, like, established in previous episodes. He feels that he has some sort of special connection with Barbara. So, I don't know. Then Pat comes along, which obviously Pat and Barbara have had marital tension in the past few episodes because of the whole Stargirl JSA situation and stuff. But I thought it was a really awesome scene because Icicle, or Jordan, was like, what are you going to do? You have no powers, you have no stripe. What are you planning on doing? And he says, I'm here to help my wife or save my wife or something. And I thought that was really cool. It just shows that he's obviously just a really nice guy who cares about his family and stuff. And I really enjoyed that scene. And then he mentions our daughter, as in his and Barbara's, and Stargirl comes in and battles Jordan, and they had a really cool face-off when he turned into Icicle, and they were both holding onto the staff, and it was freezing, and she was fighting it back, and like the staff was like lighting up and melting the ice, and it's just a very awesome scene with all like lightning and energy just flying all around. It was really cool. And then yeah, that was really cool. And then long story short, yeah, they both fall off, and Wildcat saves Courtney and stuff, and what's it called? Icicle is in the road, and he's about to unleash his ice powers on everybody, and then Mike comes along in a truck with Buddy the dog and runs him over, and he like shatters basically. So yeah, that's how Icicle got beat. And again, another thing that a lot of people were complaining about is the fact that Jordan got defeated by Mike getting run over. Again, I didn't really have a problem with it. I did have a problem with Icicle in this episode, and I'll get to that in a bit. It wasn't a huge problem, but I'll still talk about it. But the whole getting defeated by Mike with the truck thing, I didn't have a problem with it at all. I thought it was actually a pretty funny moment, especially when he says, "So can I be in the JSA now?" I thought that was pretty funny. But I didn't have a problem with it because it brought me back to when Icicle caused Joey's death, when Joey got run over. Yeah, Jordan got that treatment himself by Mike. I didn't really have a problem with it at all, since we already had good moments with Jordan. We already had a good fight scene with him and Courtney and stuff, and yeah, I didn't really have a problem with anything like that. So yeah. So that problem I had with Icicle that I mentioned earlier, it was that he felt a little bit underpowered in this episode. We've seen him do some pretty big things. Early on in the season, he was pretty powerful. He froze multiple people to death in this series. So he's very powerful villain. But he felt very underpowered in this episode because all he really did was just shoot some ice blasts, and that's really it. And even in this episode, we've seen that he can't just he not only exerts his ice powers from himself, but he can also control ice and stuff, just everything. When he froze the goggles and just the goggles. So obviously he can control the temperature of things around him and stuff. So yeah, he is he's very powerful, and he has a very powerful skill set, and the way he controls his powers is very powerful. But in this episode, all he really did, other than crushing the goggles, was shoot ice blasts, and freezing the staff, and that's really it. So yeah, that kind of sucks, but I don't really have a problem with it. But yeah, it would have been nice to see Jordan at full power levels for this finale, just to end off his character with a bang, with him using his powers in extraordinary ways. But yeah, I don't really have a huge problem with that. Another big complaint with this episode that a lot of people had was that it felt rushed, which I think it kind of did a little bit. It was, I believe, one of the shorter episodes of this season, so I think it could have benefited from being maybe 10-15 minutes longer, since I believe it was only 37 minutes long or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, there were a few episodes that were 50 minutes long, so I feel like it could have been a little bit longer. All the action stuff and the whole final ISA versus JSA, all that stuff was over and done. I wouldn't say quickly, but it was kind of fast paced. It just blew through a lot of stuff in not super quick succession, but quicker than ideal, I guess. And there was a big stretch after like, after the whole thing ended, where everyone was just, like, having a good old happy time, and, you know, I think the episode needed that kind of stuff, but I don't think it needed to be that long. If they took some of that stuff out of there and replaced it with a little bit more of the whole, the JSA, ISA battle stuff, I think it would have benefited from that, since it did feel a little bit rushed, but, again, I don't have a huge problem with it, since it wasn't, like, over and done in 5 minutes, but it was a very jam-packed episode, and it was very good, and yeah. So, let's talk about the Season 2 setup. There were a lot of cliffhangers at the end of this episode. Let's start with the villains. So, back at the ISA headquarters, I believe we saw the gambler sitting at that table, along with another villain who has been teased over in the season. We never knew he was going to show up, but we knew he existed in this universe, and that's Shade. We saw his kind of shadowy, misty sort of something floating around at the end, and he was talking and stuff, and obviously they're setting him up for Season 2, and I'm excited for that. Another big setup is Cindy. She was going through I don't know, like the ISA's locker or something like that. She found this little box. She opened it. There was like this crystal with something inside of it, and that something is named Eclipso. So I did a little research, since I've only ever heard of Eclipso. I've never really seen him or anything. I did a little bit of research, nothing really to note, because I don't really know how they're going to use him in the show, but I'm excited for his inclusion. He has a lot of different powers in the comics, so yeah. We'll just have to wait and see how they use him, and I'm excited to see that. What else do we have? I think that's all the setup for the villains. Let's talk about the final cliffhanger. We got this. In what was it, like Northern California or something? This guy goes to this motel, knocks on the door. He asks for Pat Dugan, and the guy living there says he moved away months ago. And the guy asking for Pat turns out Sylvester. Sylvester Pemberton, I think his name is, Starman, is alive, and I cannot believe it. I don't know how. I don't know what they're gonna do with him. Blew my mind. I'm so excited to see what they're gonna do with Season 2. That's the end of the finale. That's it. I'm gonna give this episode a 9.8 out of 10. Definitely the best of the season. I really loved some of the character moments. The action was great. The reveals, the twists, the cliffhangers were all amazing. There were some criticisms that people had. I don't agree with them. I have my own criticisms, like Icicle being underpowered, like I said, but it's fine. It still was a magnificent episode and a great way to end the season. So excited for Season 2. Tell me what you think is going to happen with Sylvester and Shade and Eclipso. And tell me what you want to happen in Season 2. And tell me what you thought of this episode, Season 1 as a whole. I just want to see your guys' thoughts, predictions about the show. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for all my future videos. See ya.